There's also a few web pages which I'll pop into this slides before we send off, where Twitter and the channels themselves sort of put together their best practice. And essentially that's how you beat the algorithm, when we were talking before about the algorithm, because they're telling you what they want. But I'll go into each channel as well as we go through. And yeah, let me know if you do have any questions as well. So yeah, in terms of broadly about content, we've probably covered most of this throughout the two sessions, but the three things that people want from channels are to be entertained, to be educated, and to be rewarded. So essentially entertaining, sort of talks for itself. To educate, we're all linked to the university, we're all at the university, so that's sort of our primary goal to some extent. And to reward can be quite difficult, because that's more of an e-commerce side of giving people promo codes and gifts and competitions and things like that. So that might be where we struggle a little bit more. But like we were saying before, interacting with people, asking them to use their content if there's a picture that we like, or just engaging with them, that does come with the reward bracket as well. So that one-to-one conversation. I think my main tip for channels is to be relevant. So like we were saying before about the content that you put out, making sure that your awareness stays relevant and sticking to your actual objectives. I'd much rather a channel posted a lot less or a lot more infrequent, as long as everything's completely to do with that channel and just coming up with content for the sake of it. Next tip is to be visual. That's, people are swiping all day long and up and down channels. You've got to try and stand out. The best content in the world, if it's just text, doesn't do anything. Be consistent. So if you've got a week where you've got loads and loads of content and you can put out 100 tweets in a day, if tomorrow you're not going to put out anything, it doesn't really work, especially in terms of the algorithm. So just try and spread it out a little bit more and be consistent with that. And like I've been saying, be sure to interact with people. So yeah, I was just talking about this before, so I won't go into that again. But putting audience at the heart of your content, asking them to do things, but also being realistic about what you ask them to do. I see a lot of brands that are like, send us a video of you doing this. It's like, who's going to sit at home and send someone a video of them opening something they've just bought from them? People aren't going to do it. So it might be just as simple as, like a little comment, or tag a friend in this. There was also a question on the tablet about humor. Humor's fine as long as it's not at the expense of the brand or professionalism in general. I think with every bit of humor, it's what do you achieve from using it? If it is, that can be as simple as that you've interacted with somebody, and that's perfectly fine. Or it could be that, it's a good way to get a story out and it's going to be seen a little bit more. So yeah, I think humor can be a fine line, and you might, like we were saying before, you might make a mistake, but as long as you're not putting the brand at stake, then usually fine. But I'll go into each channel now in particular. I think it starts off with Twitter, yes. So in terms of copy, just concise and clear, with a clear call to action. Which is good, because Carl was talking about this before, about what kinds of call to action you should put down on there. In terms of hashtags, again, Carl's covered this. I should have just left all this to Carl and took the day off. But we'd say 1 to 2 hashtags, and occasional emojis on Twitter go down quite well. Obviously, don't be sticking more than, I'd probably say more than 1, to be honest. The thing with hashtags as well is that I think, especially when Twitter started, it was good. People were just hashtagging the word Friday and everything, and people, it was quite new, and people would click into it and have a look at things. Hashtags for hashtag's sake don't really work anymore. If there's a campaign you can get involved with and there's already a hashtag created, brilliant. If there's something trending and that you're reacting to it and there's content there from us, great, use the hashtag. A few ones like Wednesday Wisdom, Friday Feeling, Monday Motivation, they're quite good as well. And it just sort of groups it together. Encourage conversation on Twitter. That's probably the #1 platform for conversation. Ask questions, you'll get some answers. Be careful about what you ask, but you'll definitely get some answers from people. In terms of visuals, I think, in my opinion, Twitter's the most sort of scrollable of the channels. and you go past an awful lot of stuff. So be as visual as you can, but avoid text-heavy images, because people just, it's too much text. The copy itself at the top is short and sweet. That's what Twitter's all about. So if there's any on the actual graphic itself, often it's quite ignored. GIFs, polls, I find the polls are really well engaged with, and videos is number one in terms of their algorithm. Just make sure that they're captioned as well. And with Twitter as well, because it's so quick and there's so much content out there, you can repost content throughout the week. So whether that's a new story that's done well on Monday and you want to stick it out on Wednesday as well, I think that's perfectly fine. We do that with our biggest stories. I'll go through from time to time and see what's got the most link clicks, the most engaged with content, and go, great, we'll put that out again. People will have missed it, so I'll put it out. Just a few more tips here as well. I think I've just cut off the bottom there, so I'll try and guess what I've said. But creating a content calendar, but being flexible and reactionary is really important, especially for Twitter. We covered that a little bit before about how there's two different sides to social, and that is the planning ahead, but then also being flexible. Having evergreen content on tap. So like we were saying before, posting frequently can be quite difficult because some days there's literally just nothing happening. So taking a little bit of time out. So I've got a spreadsheet of evergreen content, and that could be facts about the university, research, blogs that are sort of timeless, some videos in particular, maybe just some pictures of campus are perfectly fine. But that's obviously quite a big job, especially if you're only doing this as part of your job, but it does help in the long run. Content themes are really good. So we've recently done a campaign that's just going to run out throughout the year. It's called On This Day. We find that nostalgic content is really good. And it's basically just a little video that I've made for each alumnus, about 30 seconds long, just giving a couple facts about them. So that's just a theme that we'll keep putting out. I've got another one on Nobel Prize winners as well. But it could be something as simple as like Thursday blogs. We put out blogs on a Thursday. It helps you plan more. Key facts and figures, things like that, where you've got something that's sort of on tap for you. Yeah, I think we've covered this to death about responding and proactively talking to followers, and ensuring that your account is branded and your pinned post reflects your account as well. So, for example, this is our pinned post at the minute. We just put out a nice little good news thread, sort of cheer everyone up a little bit, and it was really well engaged. So we put that as a pinned post. But for example, when next week, when we're off a little bit, we'll put up a post about things that are open, the library being open, whether social will be open, and we'll pin that for the weekend. It's essentially the first thing people see when they go on your profile. So that is not everything about Twitter. Of course, you could do a whole 2-part session just on Twitter, but they're probably my main tips. Do pop a question in the chat though if there's anything else that you want to know on that. So here's a few bits for Facebook. Although Twitter obviously has a limit on what you can post and Facebook doesn't, but they've put out statistics that 40 character posts are what performs the best. 80 character posts are just not that far off, to be honest, but essentially keep it short, keep it concise, and posts with questions are what perform the best in particular. I think that's probably because Facebook's algorithm wants you to have conversations, so people are more likely to comment, and comments is what bumps it up to the top of the feed. So in their own words, they want your content to be meaningful, and they don't want it to take away from the site, which obviously can be quite difficult because a lot of what we want to do is link click based, but link clicks don't perform as well on Facebook. So I guess if you can, try and get your key messages into the post itself, whether it's a video, whether it's a graphic, something like that. So for example, on the left-hand side here, we've just shared what the Students' Union have said about Reclaim the Night. Instead of initially, I was going to link to a student news blog with all the information, but this will have beat the algorithm a little bit better than that.
I think just to interject there as well, I think a key point about Facebook is that they've made a big point of making their platform and the content on the platform kind of the focus is on friends and family. So it is from a sort of business page point of view, it's quite hard to get into people's news feeds because we don't have a personal account, or so it's just to make people aware of that. One way to sort of think about that, flip it on its head, is if you can get people commenting on your posts on Facebook, that and sharing them obviously as well, that's one way of getting around that. So if you make it relevant and meaningful, you elicit a comment, hopefully positive, that will push you up the news feed. So just bear that in mind with Facebook, that the focus really is kind of on friends and family. That's what they're trying to have in the news feed effectively, and that they want businesses to pay to get on the news feed. So if you've got no budget, you do need to think about ways of just getting around
that. Yep, so similar to all of them, to be honest, never post without a visual, whether that's a graphic or a video. There's also a Q&A function on Facebook, which I've not used on our channel yet, but I've seen others use it, and that's really good for engagement. But video will bring in the most, basically. With video as well, tag for organic search. So this is an example. This is from the video I mentioned earlier that we did on football season with one of our academics. So I've just tagged in the Premier League, the Championship, Football Association. There's some already built-in tags, so that's why they're all a little bit specific. But you can also add your own. And basically that means, like when you get into one of them Facebook holes and you've watched a video and all of a sudden you're scrolling down and it's some video from the Graham Norton show 3 years ago. That just means that you're sort of involved in that, and they know what content you can follow on from and what people are interested in. Sorry. So on Twitter and Instagram, you want your videos to be quite short, but on Facebook, it's actually longer videos that tend to do better. That's mainly over 3 minutes, and that's mainly because Facebook's done it on purpose, because if it's over 3 minutes, they can pop an advert in the middle of it and they make a bit of money. But cynicism aside, length can vary, basically. If you do a quick 20-second video, people are more likely to watch it and finish it. If you do a longer video, Facebook are more likely to pop it higher up the feed. But also content should be high quality and captioned, in particular on Facebook. And they've got some cool features as well in a video. So you can include polls like midway through. So I think in the middle of this one, I put up a poll where people can vote whether they think crowds do affect sport. You can do watch parties. I'm not sure how useful that'd be to a lot of us, but that can be a good driver. And Facebook Lives as well. So from everything that you'll read from Facebook, they are pushing lives. I guess that's basically just what we were saying. It's all about socials, about engaging one-on-one with people. So if you find that something can be done on live, I would definitely try to do that. And again, ensure that your account is branded as your pinned posts. You can do pinned posts on Facebook as well. Just reflect your brand. So that's Facebook. I'll go into Instagram now. So Instagram's basically behind the scenes content is king. It's like offering that different perspective on what you would put out on other channels. So for instance, if we were putting out, think of an example. We did quite recently actually with Lem's Stellified poem quite recently. We put a video on Facebook and Twitter of his big flash video that he did. But then on Instagram, a little behind the scenes story shoot of what happened, because that's sort of more what people want on Instagram. People want people on Instagram, basically. So visuals are everything on Instagram. You don't get away with putting a graphic that isn't sized properly, or a rubbish photo, or just trying to push a link somehow. The only way you can link, unless you have 10,000 followers, is through the bio, and not a lot of people go through that. So that shouldn't be the main objective of the channel. It is to be visual. So if you are trying to drive link clicks, it might not be right channel for you in particular. A lot of people fall in the trap as well, putting link clicks in the bio, in the caption itself. You can't click on it, and unless you're going to copy and paste the whole thing, which people won't, it's not got any use. Another tip as well is to use hashtags and geolocation tagging on posts, which will just reach further. So the example on the right hand side, this is our caption that we put out recently. As you can see, we've tagged the University of Manchester as our location. A lot of people do scroll locations on there. Maybe it's Manchester, maybe it's somewhere else in particular. And then the hashtags at the bottom. So we've hashtagged University Campus, Blue Skies, and Manchester. So yeah, that can be quite useful. So on the story function, where for some reason I've missed a bullet point, but they have lots of different features on there as well. Basically, a story feature for me should be, if you can, a human being instead of like a graphic, but I know that can be quite difficult. It's something that we particularly struggle with some objectives that you want to put across can be quite difficult to do with people. But there's Ask Me Anything features, there's polls, there's music. I'd experiment as much as you like on Instagram stories with the widgets that they've got there. People like to engage with them. Yeah, so like I was saying, you don't get away with graphics that aren't good, basically. So try and make them appropriately sized. Square is perfect, but as you can see from the example we've got below, you can be a little bit different around that. So they do accept different sizes. But so that one's a carousel post, which means if you swipe, there's other versions, other photos on there. And basically, as long as they're all the same size, that's fine. And then on a story, it's 1080 by 1920, which is just a rectangle. And just to try and keep text off feed and where you can off stories, but I know that's more difficult. So we were talking before about how you can DM on Twitter, like partners and people like that. Instagram is probably better for it, actually, collaborating with other accounts to sort of both benefit from it. So one example, actually in the pictures, an example, there's 10 pictures in that post. You can only see one at the minute, but basically I've gone out, found a load of students that have put pictures on Instagram, whether that's going through the hashtag UOM graduation or looking at the location tagging of the University of Manchester, and just asked them if we can share the post. I don't think I've ever had anyone say no. Everyone is quite happy to sort of have the posts on the feed. They're benefiting from it because they're getting a bit of like exposure. People will click on their profile, and you know it's quite cool to have your picture if you graduated on the university account. And obviously we're getting content which I've not had to go out and take. But that doesn't necessarily have to be with people. You know, it could be with, say, you know, a different account at the university. You can both sort of share to each other's stories as well. So it's sort of working with each other on that one. On copy, again, short, sweet, to the point. Include your hashtags. As soon as you have to press see more on a caption, 9 times out of 10 people aren't pressing see more. So try and keep it as short as you possibly can. I'm probably different to Facebook, that at the minute low production is bringing high impact. That comes back to the point that Instagram's all about people and faces, and people doing things quite quickly. So yeah, as long as it's visually pleasing, there's nothing wrong with it being low production value. And I think on the next slide, I go to LinkedIn. Yep, so I've only got one slide on LinkedIn, but basically a professional tone on there, but still provoking debate and conversation. Basically, if you're on LinkedIn, you're on there for work, you're on there for that sort of professional side of things. So just keep your content that way as well. Spotlighting employees is a good way to get engagement and a good space to do that. So whether that's sharing some of their content, working with them to create content, or even the post example that I put there is one of our professors got an award, so we made sure that we posted it on LinkedIn. Basically, if there's a big award that comes in from a professor, we're more than likely to put it on LinkedIn because it just does really well and people want to congratulate each other. Like all link-based posts, have a clear call to action. And I think what's really interesting about LinkedIn, I don't know if people found this themselves, is that you'll be scrolling through. I'll go on LinkedIn every day because I'm a loser. But then if you're scrolling through, you see things from weeks ago. And on Twitter, you see things from 10 minutes ago. So the algorithm can be a bit funny at how it serves content from a while ago. So just keep your content evergreen, ensure it has a little bit of longevity about it, plan a little bit in advance. So we were promoting our virtual open day quite recently, and I made sure that it's this Saturday, but I wouldn't put out just a post this week. So I put out ones a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and people will still be getting it tomorrow. Videos do well on LinkedIn, as they do on most channels, but so do articles and PDFs actually at the minute are doing really well on there. I guess that's literally because it's a work environment kind of platform, so people are more than happy to go in and read something a little bit longer, which also ties into how longer captions perform well on there as well. So I think I've covered.
Cheers, Harry. Yeah, it's a weird. I'm just going to pick up on that PDF thing. It's a really weird one. I think, unless I'm completely not getting this right, but I think Microsoft owns LinkedIn now. So I think that's something to do with the fact that PDFs are just really well integrated in the platform. So we've shared a couple of things like, I think might have been the SDG report on our LinkedIn page, and we shared the PDF and we targeted it to relevant audiences, and did really well. We just got a lot of engagement, and I guess it goes back to the whole people use the channels for different things. So you go to LinkedIn maybe to maybe look for a job, or just get additional like inspiration around your career, and you maybe spend a bit more time on the platform. Whereas with Twitter, you probably go on there for 5 minutes, scroll through, and then go and do something else. So it's again trying to get your head around those kind of user behaviors really as well. But